All right, parents, here we go again. It's the Ask Dr. Tony episode. This is the Experience Miracles podcast, and I'm your host, Dr. Tony Ebel, an expert in pediatrics, neurodevelopmental disorders, and drug-free, nervous system-focused healthcare. On this weekly episode, I'll be addressing the top questions on every parent's mind. If there's one thing we love and welcome, it's parents who never stop learning, asking the hard questions, and advocating for your kiddos like none other. So get ready for some real talk, real-life clinical and parenting experience, and real easy to understand answers that will help your family take action and get to that next level of health and healing. You ask, I answer. Let's dive into today's episode. Here we go. Let's answer the question that comes in all the time here through this platform. And it's a very important one for a lot of you who are considering starting different care like chiropractic. I'm gonna talk about the thing that I do, right? And relate it to kids getting adjusted. But this would be very similar to any other sort of intervention and that you would want to go in and have your sensory spectrum child get help with. We're going to talk about some tips, 5 tips. It's kind of 6 because I'm actually throw down a foundational thing we do in our offices first. So we got 5 tips on how to help kids with sensory challenges who don't like to be touched. How do we get them adjusted? Now, what happens all the time is people are moving towards the work that we are so blessed to do with neurologically-focused chiropractic care. Once they hear and see all the other miracles that are happening, all the other, we call them stories of hope on our website, and you can actually go to the website, pxdocs.com, and as of today, you can click on stories of hope. So those are our testimonials, our real life case studies. People are like, show me the research. And you know what us parents need? We don't always need a randomized flipping clinical trial. I didn't need that for Oliver. There was no randomized clinical trial to show that me adjusting him right after his significant hypoxic brain injury was going to help him. I just knew from other patients' experience. So you can go to our website, you can click on stories of hope, and you can search for different conditions or challenges that your child has. And so we start there, right? And so as you're moving down this road and you start to hear about how things like hands-on chiropractic, neurologically focused chiropractic can help, then maybe you get onto the podcast, you get onto the platform, and you start to learn about it. And you look at all the research and the science behind it. And you start to get excited. While, by the way, simultaneously probably getting a little ticked off, like, why in the world did my pediatrician or anybody else on my team not tell me about this yet? The perfect storm, subluxation, nervous system dysregulation. These are all very black and white, scientific, truth, clinically research-proven realities once you hear about them. And that's why we built this platform, because not enough people have heard about them. So you're moving down the road, right? We're kind of playing this scenario out. You're moving down the road of getting excited and getting so fired up to get your kiddo adjusted, to get their nervous system regulated, to activate their vagus nerve. And you now know that this hands-on, this hands-on work, so chiropractic literally means, by definition, by hand. Things like this would be incredible for your child. And you can just tell that they are sensory stuck. They're in that sympathetic storm. They did go through the perfect storm. They are wound up. Most of the time, especially with sensory spectrum kiddos, motor tics, pandas, you name it, autism, you can see the physical stress on your kid. Just think about it, right? Just look at their traps and their shoulders. Look at their toe walking and their teeth grinding and their jaw. They're full of tension, neurological, neuromuscular tension. So play all that scenario out. And I think for a lot of parents, they get so excited. And I get this question after every single Perfect Storm webinar and every single Perfect Storm workshop I do. And the question that came into the platform that we're answering today with these 5 steps goes, oh my gosh, this sounds like literally the foundational missing link I've been looking for the whole time. But my kid hates to be touched. My kid doesn't like strangers. They're locked into autism. So the social, emotional, physical construct is going to be difficult. And a lot of times, I think parents don't take that last step to get their kiddo scanned, to get their kiddo adjusted, to get their child under care, because they kind of put this in front of it and they go, there's no way it's going to work. There's no way it's going to happen. Well, what I want to do is give you the 6 ways. It's kind of a foundation plus 5 as to it absolutely does. And it's really incredible. It's really transformative. And actually, when we get into these 5 things, it's also pretty simple, okay? So let's get started. How do you adjust sensory kids who do not like to be touched? Number 1, you gotta go in with the right training. You gotta go in with the right understanding. But I'd start with the foundation of the humans and the location. So I'm going to put the people that are called to this, so the pediatric chiropractors, our team, our staff, and then our environment, our office location. So we think long and hard about this exact real life scenario that no sensory spectrum kids, and actually, by the way, just a lot of kids who don't even have sensory issues. Brand new babies are, you got that right when your infant becomes like 6 months, 8 months, 12 months, up to about 18 months, sometimes even a little longer. There's that period of time where nobody else is cool. Do not let me out of my mom and dad's hands, right? Into someone else's hands. So this is a sensory spectrum thing, but it's also just kind of a thing, right? That kids go through. I have, shout out to one of my good buddies, Tim, and a lot of us, what are we? We're grown sensory kids. We're grown ADHD spectrum. I have the greatest relationship with my ADHD. I'm so grateful to God to have it. So I'm sensory and wound up as the day is long. And so shout out to one of my good bro buddies, other dads, Tim. He's like, only you are going to adjust me. He's so afraid to get adjusted. Sorry for calling you out here on the podcast, buddy. But it's just how it goes. It's true. Okay. So real life for a lot of kids and a lot of patients. And so what we do first is we have built a foundational kind of cheat code into this. We actually, and by the way, not every PX Doc's office starts out when they first kind of choose their location, their layout, and even you're going to see here in a second, kind of paint colors and everything else, what we call layout or the floor plan of the office. Not every chiropractor who now serves sensory and spectrum kids knew that they were going to go on this path. So they may not have all of, when I go through this list, not everything, especially this foundational part, not everything may match up perfectly with your PX chiropractor, but down the road, I promise they're looking for this because this stuff works and it's really important. So we chose the location of our offices. I've grown out of my first office that I had here in Crystal Lake and grown into the second one. We chose a professional location where there's less foot traffic, less cars, less noise. It's not really on a main busy road and intersection. Not only is that more convenient for families, but it's honestly better for sensory kids. So our location has actually some pre-wirings, not just to like, we want to be in a professional place. That's part of it too, but we want to be in a sensory friendly place. The layout, when you walk into our practice and practices like ours, you won't see the traditional stuffy plexiglass, closed doors, put them in the treatment room and hold them down and get to work sort of medical mentality. How many of our sensory and spectrum kids have had to go into the medical world and have blood draws and have MRIs and have EEGs? So they're freaking terrified, understandably so, fully understandably so, of doctors' offices because they all kind of look the same, smell the same, and they got... Not everybody working in there is always so pleasant and cheery. The plexi, after you're there for like 18 minutes and you're on time, but they're 4 days late. And then they finally, some grumpy, lady opens up the plexiglass and is like, Ebel. Like, well, okay, good day to you, dear. Fill out this paperwork, give me your insurance. You ever seen Monsters, Inc. with Roz? Okay. I feel like Roz, and if you've seen it, goodness gracious, this me being sarcastic / real at the same time here works a whole lot better than if you haven't seen Monsters, Inc. or gone to the thing down in Disney. But Roz is this grumpy monster who kind of like is the check-in for this manufacturing. And unfortunately, I think Roz works at a lot of medical offices. So I'll stop belaboring this point now, but I am pretty known to belabor points here on the podcast and the platform. And so our entire location, our layout, and our team. Do you know that every single person that works for me as a care advocate on our team, and actually even half of our chiropractors, are parents of perfect storm sensory and spectrum kids who have healed and had incredible... So everybody, including the actual location, is built for this. We choose paint colors and furniture colors and the layout of what is in our office, and guess what isn't? A whole bunch of stuff that can get in their way and look stressful and look scary. So you get into this incredible, welcoming, sensory-friendly environment. So I wanted to go slow there. That's step 0 on my list. That's the foundation of how we do this, and it's really, really important. Now, step 2, there's a way with which to do this work with sensory spectrum kids, and there's a way not to. And so this 5 list, we're going to break down, okay, well, here's how it goes, and I'll probably sneak in like, here's why we don't do X, Y, or Z, okay? Number 1, hardest one for me. Being a raging bull, sensory, can't wait to help other kids kid myself, okay? We're never in a rush and we're never in a hurry, okay? The truth is we have a busy practice. We are blessed and called to serve lots of people, but that doesn't matter when we are in that one room or the toy room or the playroom or on the move, I'll get to that next, working with a kiddo sensory spectrum. So they have such a heightened sense of stress and sensory input that's why they're so sensitive to bright lights, flashing lights, noises, lots of busyness, lots of traffic. So we literally slow ourselves down. We slow down our communication, our verbalization. We talk a little slower. We smile a ton. We use a different kind of tone of voice to make sure. And again, this is really hard for me because usually when I'm meeting these kids and families, I am coming in knowing I'm the first person in a long time that is restoring their hope and has some answers to actually explain to them why their child is having sensory and spectrum issues in the first place. So I can't tell you how hard number one is. That's why I put it first on my list. I'm like, I got to get this one out of the way because it's the one that I have to consciously, logically, every single time, still 17 years, think about. And so we move slower. We talk calmer. We make sure that we're not adding stress to an already stressed kiddo. And so we make sure that our nervous system and our team have our nervous systems fully regulated. And then we're never in a rush. We're never in a hurry. We're setting up the office environment here. And we let them get in and figure it out, check everything out. We're never in a hurry to say, hey, we got to get you in and get you scanned. We're never in a hurry to say, hey, we got to get you in a room and get you adjusted. This is not your regular chiropractic office when you're taking care of sensory and spectrum kids. We will adjust in the toy room. We will adjust in the waiting room. We will adjust when they are ready. And there's more things on the list to help them get ready. So we're just getting started. Number two is the perfect segue to what I was just saying. We prefer to adjust through play and movement. Now with this one, second on my list, I can't help but get a little nerdy in the neuroscience. What subluxation, dysfunction, nervous system dysregulation, dysautonomia, where the sympathetics are running the show and the vagus nerve and the parasympathetic are shut down. So all the science we teach here on the platform, the podcast, all the time. Subluxation wreaks havoc on the sensory, motor, movement, proprioceptive, position sense, vestibular, gait, tone, coordination. These are all kind of words that mean the same thing. So we actually can see subluxation and neurological dysfunction easiest on kids where movement, motor milestones are essential to brain and nervous system development, right? So this what would you call it? This incoordinated, asymmetrical, discombobulated movement patterns, that's actually how we find subluxation and the location of what's called the primary or major subluxation that we need to put our hands on there and adjust. And we're going to get to that next, okay? These kids don't get adjusted in the same way as a 50-year-old with spinal degeneration and back pain would on YouTube and freaking TikTok. So what most people think of with chiropractic adjustments is also in the way of them choosing to get their sensory spectrum kit adjusted because they're like, oh, this is so manual and it's a lot of cracking and it's a lot of popping and you got to lay on the table and you got to be quiet and you got to relax and my kid's just not going to do that. No, they don't. The majority of the time, they don't even necessarily need to get on the table. We adjust what I like to call on the move. We do standing adjustments, standing integrations. We do what are called scoop adjustments, bear hug adjustments. And we do a more movement and play-based approach with our adjustments. So they happen all the time. Like if you were to be on my hip, if you were to be one of our interns and shadow me all day long, I should actually I'm going to do that next week. I'm going to have our interns actually kind of check a percentage of how many adjustments I do on the actual adjusting bench and table versus not. And it's at least 50-50. Now, here's what happens. Because you may think, oh, but wouldn't it be better for my kid to land? That's what we always kind of think as a parent. And I wanted to talk about this sensory motor dysfunction and the fact that adjusting on the move is actually more potent and more effective. But yes, over time, guess what happens as we go through all these modifications and up-leveling to serve and support your sensory kid the best? Their nervous system regulates. It calms. So you know what happens after just a few adjustments of these modifications? Your brilliant, incredible, empathetic, genius, sensory spectrum kids go, whoa, that was awesome. That helped me a ton. Now, they don't necessarily, after two adjustments, a nonverbal, level 3 autism kid isn't going to go, hey, let me walk you through how much better I'm feeling and functioning after that. But they do tell you without telling you. The only meltdowns we have the majority of the time at our practice are from kids who are done getting adjusted. My buddy Jake just did it to me yesterday. He's like, listen, man, I really enjoyed those adjustments because you can't overstimulate a dysregulated system. So there's only a certain amount of adjustments, usually 1, 2, 3 at max. When you're doing neurosensory, neurotonal PX docs work, you don't get that many adjustments. You get a higher frequency, but you get less inputs because they can't handle that many, okay? You have to do this healing neuroplastically over time. And so our sensory spectrum kids, at first, yes, you got to use all these systems to get their trust and to get them adjusted. Once you get a couple of inputs into their system, they are literally, awesomely, neurologically addicted to it. And they get a little mad at you and you're done. And it's really funny and it's really true and it's really neurological. If that doesn't show how much we're helping them, I don't know what is, because they don't do that with it. They're not like, hey, I would love more fermented foods. Okay? They're not like, oh, you know what? More supplements. I would love to take 38 supplements a day. What sensory spectrum kid, does that stuff, right? And again, certain stimulations that's why they love, and you can know this for your sensory kid. What do they love from you? Deep pressure, big hugs, snuggles, right? Proprioceptive physical input. What do they love to do to calm their nervous system? Stem, move, get out. So neurologically focused chiropractic adjustments are that. They're sensory, calming, pressure, integration, movement into the system. So at first, you got to earn their trust. You got to kind of use these modifications and these tips and tricks. And then once you're rolling, they love it. Number 3, you got to use the appropriate tone. Now, what does this mean? So within chiropractic, all the work that we do as PX docs, literally what they're certified in, if they're one of the full certified, on the director, you can see if it says PX Pro and Cert on there, it's clearly demarcated that they've gone all the way through the certification. Just like any group of doctors, it's a long journey to kind of go through this training and everything else. So there's some that have the certifications and others that are working towards it and maybe don't have it yet. And you can see that clearly demarcated on the site. So when they go through the certification, they complete what's called the neurotonal adjusting seminar. And all of our adjustments are neurologically focused. All of our adjustments are designed to improve, restore, recalibrate, and reorganize appropriate neurosensory and nervous system tone. And the access point is really that neuromuscular system. Some adjustments are what are called low tone and light tone. So when they happen, it doesn't look like anything's happening, especially if you've had a more traditional skeletal, structural, segmental, manual chiropractic adjustment. This doesn't look like that, because it's not that, okay? So this is a light force laying on what we call sustained contact, proprioceptive low tone adjustment. And a lot of our raging bull kiddos who are super wound up and super sensory and super spectrum, they actually respond to those first best, or I guess I could have said best first. And so a lot of the adjustments are just this calming, regulating, release adjustment. So a lot of times parents are all worked up because they're thinking, chiropractic adjustments for kids, it's going to be the same as what I see on TikTok or YouTube, or I've experienced myself when I had an auto accident or went after it for back pain. Not at all, okay? There's a ton of different chiropractic techniques, and these low tone, light force techniques are often 1000% what we're starting with sensory and spectrum kids. And then within this, so within step 3, there are a lot of cases, we refer to them as perfect storm intensives, where your child's nervous system may have gone through all what are called the 3 stages of subluxation. They're not only sympathetic wound up, but now they're dysregulated, stage 2, and neurologically exhausted or depleted, stage 3. Now, those kiddos tend to subluxate more in their core. So if you have a really dysregulated, neurologically exhausted kiddo, usually they're a little older when they reach this stage because it's the progression of the perfect storm over time. So subluxation left unattended to will go through these 3 stages of neurological progression. And unfortunately, it's not a good direction, right? It's a vicious cycle of challenges. And so you'll see this, you'll kind of know that your kiddo is neurologically exhausted if their posture has really collapsed and they're really clumsy all the time. They're what we call the drunken bull, and they're really exhausted in their physical, they have no endurance, and you can just kind of see that they're bent forward and exhausted all the time. Those are kids that may need to get these standing, scoop, integrating adjustments into what are called their transitional zones in their core. But again, even if they're a little, challenged in the social, emotional, hands-on department, once you get even 1 or 2 of these adjustments into kiddos, and I still have step 4 and number 5 as to how we're going to get even closer to the adjustment itself here with 4 and 5. then you get those adjustments in and these kids go, son of a gun. That was exactly what I needed. And again, they start to actually crave the adjustments. Our kids will literally, parents tell us all the time that their kids are most excited, most fired up, sensory spectrum kids, so fired up to come into the office. They're saying our name. They're talking about us all the time. They want to go back to PwC or their PX office. They want to get adjusted. They get so excited when they pull in the parking lot, and then they get mad when they leave. So if there's anything else, I can teach you all the neuroscience that proves out how much we help these kids. But if we just watch how they go through this, where sensory spectrum kids are like, yeah, no, to pretty much everything else, and yeah, more to neurologically focused chiropractic, that right there. And we tell you this, parents, we want you to know this. Heck yes, get online, get on these podcasts, get into the research, go to our show notes, go to our website, read the articles, click the research. It's all on there. It's all on our website. So do the research, get into the science. But the best thing you can do to really get your kiddo to heal is just innately listen to your gut and also listen to them. And I actually find that sensory spectrum kiddos even more so are tapped into and tuned into what serves them well and what doesn't. And so you'll just see how much they love this kind of chiropractic when they get access to it. And it's the best thing ever. Okay, 2 more things on the list. Number 4, what we do is we build trust and we build predictability. What we know is our sensory and spectrum kids, and a la pretty much everybody in life, likes routine, right? They like their schedule. They like their rituals. So we got them, right? We got the different rituals we do, which actually are part of our, what are called neurotonal checks. We've got secret handshakes. We've got countdowns. We've got certain safe spots in the office that certain kids like to go to and get adjusted. Each kid is awesomely unique. So this predictability, this building trust, this ritual, they may have a fidget spinner, we may adjust while they have the iPad for a little bit. Parents often are like, hey, we don't really use this at all because we don't want it to be, overly connected to, we want them to be able to socialize and emotion, but hey, when we need to get a scan or get an adjustment, sometimes it's totally fine to have these things or kind of the weighted object or things that they love, okay? So there's all sorts of stuff we do to build trust and rituals and predictability. And number 5 on the list, and this one happens a lot, and it's really fun and it's really funny, is often parents, you are the adjusting table. So we will make adjustments with the child snuggling you in your lap, or you're laying on the table on your back and they're laying on top of you, and it works. I've used this my entire career. I'll never not use it. And so just who do they trust? So what is our job as neurologically focused chiropractors? To get them to feel safe in their body again, to not force anything into their system. It's the opposite of that. The adjustments aren't forceful. The adjustments are relaxing, regulating, releasing that stuck stress. So we never force an adjustment on a kiddo. There's this list, and there's probably even more things that kind of happen. I was just, this came through the platform all the time, and I've been doing this for 17 years. So these 5-6 things are just innately wired into me. So it actually took me like 2 hours to make my list with all my bullet points to get ready for this podcast, because I was like, I don't want to miss anything. And I don't even know all the things that I do. I just, I know that God called me to this work, and those of us that do this, like, we're just wired this way. And in the same breath, we do have these strategies. And one of our favorite ones is this 5th one, where parents, they're obviously communicating with the kiddo, hey, we're going in, we're getting adjusted, this is going to happen. And, there's all those sorts of kind of like pre-adjustment routines, parent to kiddo trust, parent to provider. We never like go in and, hey, get a hold of a kiddo, lay on the table. Like, that just doesn't happen. It's always a bridge. It's always a connection. And the safest, calmest regulating place for any child is in their parents' arms. So guess what? We can do what we need to do while they are right there, safe, literally, physically connected to you. And it works great. It works effectively. If any of this wasn't clinically effective and proven to still get the job done, I wouldn't teach it to you. And I wouldn't teach it to our PX Docs tribe. But these 5-6 things, they work all the time. The key is this: we are working with the nervous system to get it to heal, not against it. This isn't a medication. This isn't a surgery. This isn't a forced intervention that the medical world kind of uses a lot of times. We are working with the nervous system. So it is essential to our clinical results that kids feel safe, regulated, engaged, and connected with us. And that helps their adjustments be that much more effective. So keep your questions coming. I'm so glad this one came. I was a little nervous about doing this one because it's it's such a visual, kind of like physical interaction thing that I hope my words, obviously, here as this comes out later on, it's all verbal. And I hope that my words, instead of like actually showing, we do have some really, really cool videos and different things that we often will put onto the website and onto our social media to just show how calm and relaxing and what are called low tone and easy and enjoyable these adjustments are. And that's really how it works. So what I want you to know is what you may have thought of chiropractic adjustments, or even a chiropractic office, or a chiropractic layout, or a chiropractic team, and then thought, that's just not going to jive with my sensory kid. Just know this. PX offices, neurologically focused family chiropractors, totally different. As within one thing, a profession, as different as you can get from what would be called a corrective care or spinal care kind of back pain office. Everything we do is totally different. Thank you for tuning in to today's episode. Do you have a question that you would like to submit? Either send it to support@pxdocs.com with the subject Ask Dr. Tony, or head on over to our socials @PXDocs, where you can submit your question in our stories every single week. Every kid counts and every family counts, so let's leave no questions left unanswered. If you loved this episode and you want to help us reach more kids, we would so appreciate if you left a review and a rating on your favorite platform. God bless, be well. We'll see you on the next one.